Shalom in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Peace in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. This is a video on the issue of the tithe. Okay, and we're going to look in the Torah and we're going to look at what the Torah says about tithe. Now we know that the word tithe means 10%, to give a 10% of something. And what we're going to see in the Torah is that they were two separate tithes, at least two separate tithes per year of the increase of each year. So let's see this. First of all, in Numbers 18 verse 21, we read, "To the Levites I have given," that's Yahweh speaking, "I have given every tithe in Israel for an inheritance, in return for their service that they do, their service in the tent of meeting, so that the people of Israel do not come near the tent of meeting, lest they bear sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tent of meeting, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations, and among the people of Israel they shall have no inheritance." So we see here this first tithe was to be given to the children of Israel, the children of Levi, for their work that they were doing in the tabernacle, and also to make up for the fact that they did not have an inheritance among the people of Israel in the promised land. There was no inheritance given to the children of Levi. They were instead to be kind of like a roaming tribe that could pretty much settle wherever they wanted to settle, so they got the tithe to kind of make up for this fact that they didn't have the inheritance. So that's tithe number one, and we read about tithe number two in a little bit later on in Torah. This is in Deuteronomy 14 verse 22, and it reads, "You shall tithe all the yield of your seed that comes from the field year by year." So it's another annual tithe of the increase. "And before Yahweh your God, in the place that he will choose to make his name dwell there, you shall eat the tithe of your grain, of your wine, and of your oil, and the firstborn of your herd and flock, that you may learn to fear Yahweh your God always." So we see here this second tithe was to be actually consumed, taken down to the place where Yahweh would choose. Now we know later on the place that Yahweh chose from the time of David, it was Jerusalem, and still is Jerusalem. That city is Yahweh's city. And so the children of Israel were to go down to the city of Jerusalem and to consume 10% of their increase of all of their produce of that year. So this is separate to the tithe that was to be given to the Levites. Now interestingly, we read it a little bit later. It says, verse 24, "If the way is too long for you, so that you are not able to carry the tithe, when Yahweh your God blesses you, because the place is too far from you, which Yahweh your God chooses to set his name there, then you shall turn it into money, and bind up the money in your hand, and go to the place that Yahweh your God chooses, and spend the money for whatever you desire, oxen or sheep or wine or strong drink, whatever your appetite craves, and you shall eat there before Yahweh your God, and rejoice, you and your household. And you shall not neglect the Levite who is within your towns, for he has no portion or inheritance with you." So you see, if the place was too far, then the command is to sell that 10% of the produce and take it down to Jerusalem and buy whatever you wanted to buy, and to actually consume it down there, you and your household, along with the Levites who are with you. So that's a second tithe. Now, possibly in verse 28 and 29, we read about a third tithe that was to be done every 3 years. It says, "At the end of every 3 years, you shall bring out all the tithe of your produce in the same year and lay it up within your towns. And the Levite, because he has no portion or inheritance with you," see, Yahweh loves the Levite tribe, these a special tribe among the special tribes of Israel. All 12 of them are special, but the tribe of Levi is particularly special. "And the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow, who are within your towns, shall come and eat and be filled, that Yahweh your God may bless you in all the work of your hands that you do." So maybe this was a different tithe, a third tithe that was to be done on top of the other two every third year. However, it could be the second tithe, instead of taking it down to Jerusalem to consume that tithe, it could be that Yahweh was saying that in the third year they were to, instead of going down to Jerusalem, to stay in their cities and to actually consume the tithe there, and invite all the poor, the widow, the fatherless, the Levites to come in and enjoy the tithe with them. So there we go. At least 20% per year of everyone's increase was to be given in the form of tithes. Some of it to the Levites, and some of it to be actually consumed by the people themselves. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is that all of these tithes were on top of all of the offerings and sacrifices that were to be given, on a regular basis. Remember, there were offerings for free will offerings, praise offerings, guilt offerings, trespass offerings, sin offerings, various offerings during the feasts and whatnot. All these tithes are on top of those offerings and on top of all the sacrifices that would be done, for either for praise or for sin offerings. Remember also there were offerings and sacrifices to be made because of uncleanness, at the end of the unclean period, whether it was a menstrual cycle or leprosy or a bodily discharge or any kind of things like this. They were all offerings that had to be done. That's separate from the tithes, so that's a whole nother requirement on the people that's given in Torah for us to consider. And the third thing that I want to point out is that on top of the tithe, and also separate from all of the offerings, was the command that for the people to look after the poor among them. We see this in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 35. If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you shall support him as though he were a stranger and a sojourner, and he shall live with you. You see that? So if a brother fell into debt, if they fell into hard times, if the crop failed or, through no fault of their own, then the people are to support them, and to support them as though they were a stranger and a sojourner, and that, the poor man was to come and live with you. We read further, take no interest from him or profit, but fear your God that your brother may live beside you. You shall not lend him your money at interest, nor give him your food at for profit. I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan and to be your God. So you see, on top of the tithing, on top of all of the offerings, the people of Yahweh are commanded to look after the poor who are among them, look after them sacrificially, to give them what they need, to lend them money and food at no interest, okay, and not to profit from their poverty, but rather to help them up back onto their feet. We read the same thing as well in another part of the Torah, in Deuteronomy 15 verse 7 to 11, but we won't go there now because of time. So this is just showing the requirements that Yahweh puts on his people according to Torah. There was at least 20% to be given of increase, every year's increase. 20% of that had to be tithed. Okay, then there was all the offerings and sacrifices, which would use up a lot of of our produce. And also it's incumbent upon the people to look after those who are poor among them, to sacrificially look after them, and to give them what they need, not profiting from their poverty. Now I'm going to make another video to discuss the issue of tithing for today, but this video is just a quick overview of what the Torah actually teaches concerning tithing.